Welcome back to Lost Odyssey. So yeah, let's prepare the funeral for Lirum.
So well, I guess on the one side, we finally found our long-lost daughter, right in time for her to die, and
plus her children, which, if you notice, we are actually in control of one of them.
Jesus Christ. Everyone in this universe has the power to run.
Whoa, my head's spinning!
What a wild ride.
Well, to be fair, Dwarfs, I'd rather have this than what we have in David Cage games where the characters walk like the fucking space of a turtle. So
again, I'll take these over the average Sony's lowdown game.
With speed like this, how the hell are characters shot in this universe?
Well, Dwibs. Look, Usain Bolt is incredibly fast and a real man. But for as fast as he is, a speeding bullet is still a speeding bullet.
Yeah, but they won't have time to line up the shot properly.
Also, the track, the music track "Faster Than a Speeding Bullet" is in Soul Calibur 5, not this game.
Huh. And they didn't have Superman guest star in that.
It's Natsu's theme, Jova.
Is he like the resident Superman of the world?
Jova. Soul Calibur 5, Natsu, the character appeared in Project Zone 2.
Never mind. I was thinking... God, sorry. I was
thinking.
Okay, got me there.
For me, it's one of those things, might as well since there's not much going on. Basically, we're just collecting the flowers for the burial.
Yeah.
For me, it's one of those things where it depends on context, you know? If overdone, the whole slow walk thing can become annoying. Like I said, David Cage games overuse the fuck out of it, so that's a bad example of it. But it also depends on the context of how you use it, because a good example of this is something like in God of War Ragnarok. Like, without spoiling the others, whenever there's a flashback to a specific scene between Kratos and his wife, obviously you don't want the player to allow to start speeding around, completely breaking the mood of the scene, obviously. So in a scene like that, it makes more sense.
I actually still have to play properly Ragnarok for myself, so I never tested what I'm about to ask about. Maybe Pedro. Did they added a way to potentially, skip cutscenes or, speed them up in case you've already seen them?
Yes, you can. Well,
okay, then. No, because that was one of my things from the first game, but it kind of kills replayability because of that.
Oh, you mean like skipping cutscenes like in the newer games, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Granted, I never actually tried skipping the cutscenes in the 2018 game, but like they're unskippable. I'll have to go back and check.
Well, I think from what I tried, it didn't seem to actually progress that much because, again, for those who don't know, I don't know who was the first who actually made this, but Dead Space kind of pioneered this back in 2008. The idea of a one tracking kind of thing is in the camera stays fixed behind your character with no real cutscenes that take it away from them. Maybe they pan over something else, but they always stay focused.
Okay.
And stay
Sorry.
Go on.
No. I thought you were done. Go on.
But as a result, depending on what the game does, this also means that you have to take the game in one bulk. So someone who actually want to say replay the game or do it in a more arcade way is kind of stuck with an experience that goes as the pace as the game intends.
Sure.
That's what I think about it. Like, compare these to the Horizon games, because they're more structured, kind of like in a more traditional way, with more proper cutscene and Bioware-style dialogue. Someone who wants to basically have just the gameplay experience can easily skip all of that. And sure, I get it. The story of 2018 and Ragnarok is something that you should not skip on the first try, but maybe something that can get unlocked with New Game Plus, for example.
Oh yeah, obviously. I'm not saying you shouldn't have skippable cutscenes. It's okay. It also, one thing we also have to remember, Teo, is the way the games are designed. Because in Ghost of Tsushima, you can skip some cutscenes, but others you can't. But people who have data mined the game will tell you that the reason that like for example, Teo, the cutscene in the prologue where you see Jin as a kid talking to his uncle, you know the one, right? Like the one where he flashes back to the bit where there's a funeral, you know what I'm talking about, right? That cutscene is unskippable in the PS4 version because the game is masking a big loading time for the big open world area of the game, right? So that cutscene can't be skipped in the PS4 version, but there's a technical reason for that, because the game is literally loading while that cutscene is playing. In the PS5 version, thanks to the SSD, they made that cutscene skippable this time.
Alright, we got all the flowers. Where are we going next?
Now,
Back to the house.
Alright, the funeral organizer. Ah, you gathered the flowers. This should be enough to send Miss Lee off for the final journey.
All right, Mr. Kaim, please gather the branches for the torch.
Why don't you do it, you lazy shit?
It's not his job, Dwibs.
Remember,
He's a funeral director.
I need about 10 torches to light. I trust you can take care of that. Just to get back also to this game to mention, you might have questions about why is the game stopping for you to do what essentially is chores for this. Again, I do believe that the game is making a point. It's basically making you taking time to reflect upon the events that just transpired. And the fact that you're also having this from the perspective of both one of the children and also Kaim, if I recall correctly, also the other kid is also going to contribute, serves also to reinforce, because admittedly, this is something that the Final Fantasy franchise touched only briefly in some games, not as much as it would, but only very briefly. It was more Dragon Quest that did this in some occasions, to have your party composed by potentially an entire family. Not the entire of a party, but, a part of it would have been the nucleus of a family, which is kind of unique for an RPG. Usually when you think of RPG party, you think, just a bunch of ragtag people that normally don't know each other, or maybe one of them is two of them like childhood friends or something, but otherwise are people united by fate under circumstances, sometimes literally in the case of Final Fantasy 13. But my point is, only a few of them would be very connected to each other, But in cases like this, we have an entire family nucleus, which again, because it's kind of a rarity, gives a bit of an edge to it, because it's not something based on. It's kind of similar to what he said about Papa Nier when it came to the original version of Nier, because at that time, the whole father that wants to protect, his siblings was on a concept that was not done that much. It had a bit of a novelty to it, even if unfortunately it was not the original way Taro maybe intended, and thankfully these days with the 1.22 version we're restored to Bronir, but there was a bit of a novelty factor, and so is there in this.
That being said, too, now I can actually throw your own argument at this game, because if you're trying to go for an arcade experience with this game and on a second term, this kind of breaks the pace of that. And really...
I agree, but thankfully you have a tool in the form of a speed up, running animation. At the very least, there is a way. My point in all of this, just to try to have one, I prefer when a game actually makes me retain some form of control over it. If there is such a thing as a slowdown, the game is making a statement and say, "Don't worry, I'm showcasing you something, so take a seat back, or don't worry too much about this, and let me show you things." But if that keeps happening, too much over it, or at the very least, I'm not given control of the matter. As in, for example, the classic follow of an NPC where they're showcasing you the area. It might as well be a proper cutscene, with the cinematography and everything. I get the idea that sometimes it's used, like you said, to load an area or... Oh, hold on.
Let us begin. Everyone is waiting to give Miss Liram a final farewell.
And the sky is finally gray and gloomy enough to match the mood of everyone.
Well, believe it or not, Joe, but the more poignant matter will be when the sky turns red.
Yep.
Can't we have a funeral that takes place on a nice sunny day?
Sorry, Dwibs, that doesn't help the narrative as much.
Sorry, but cinema language usually dictates that when there's a sad moment, usually you use darker lighting and stuff like that.
Fuck cinema language. That's old anyway.
The irony that Spider-Man, of all films, actually has a funeral on a sunny day.
I'll stick with Kaim.
Granted, that was a funeral for the bad guy, so
the fun fact,
tell us something.
I actually thought of another one, Jova. Chloe's funeral at the end of Life is Strange 1 is also in a sunny day.
Well, he is a grandfather with his grandchildren.
Maybe the writers were trying to tell us something, since, hey, with Spider-Man, that was for Norman Osborn's funeral. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, he's not an arsehole to everybody. Now he's an arsehole except to his grandchildren.
Those flowers.
How nice.
See, for
That's
us,
change.
we figured that as long as
Well, like Theo said in the previous part, Bibbs, this is the point in the story that's a major turning point for Kaim. This is where Kaim is going to now become the guardian of these kids, since he's the grandfather.
Also, we'll start, as you were about to see, he's gonna start to be a bit more emotional.
I do like that they don't go for the stereotypical, no, I can't get too close to you because I'm immortal, despite the fact that you just lost your mother deal.
Remember, the main reason he's been so apathetic up until now is because he was under the impression that everybody that has ever been dear to him is dead. So he like we've said, like we've seen multiple times in the dream. Yeah, like we've seen multiple times, as what Theo just said. As we've seen in the dreams multiple times, Kaim literally got to a point where he's just like he's even tired of living.
I'm wondering because of a difference in personality. Seth also is in a similar condition to Kaim, but because of her different choices in life, she is in a slightly better position.
Like, she's in a sense where I could see her being in a similar mindset to Kaim, but she hides it way better.
Was probably tied to memories of those times.
Also, I definitely do chalk up a lot of Kaim's moods to the memory loss, because if there is one person he should have that's able to help him keep right, it should be his wife, who apparently is still out there and alive, so... Yeah.
Which basically implies something, Jova. Like, if it was really that long ago and she's still around, then...
Yep. I thought that
What
was
happened there?
Not just that, but it also...
We'll see.
Yeah.
Go show them to Lyra.
Oh.
But yeah, no, like, I've seen so many stories where even after a traumatic business like this, the hero will go, no, I can't get in touch with you, and he only reveals it, like, near the end.
Or goes the Cloud way of, oh no, I cannot endanger you or anything.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that I did like that little nice moment between Seth and Jensen right now, where Jensen showed a more vulnerable moment of himself. Like, I get emotional at times like this, and I don't deal with these moments way too well either. So that's them finding some common ground for a change. That's nice.
The deceased. Miss Lyra must now begin her new journey. Our final duty is
Oh yeah, I was
to
just
sever
looking
our
up
ties in
what
the
else
form
Keith
of
Ferguson
his
has done. Christ, it's hard to. I think it's easy to find an actor who wasn't in a Hitman game at some point. He was one of the targets
He shall give us
in the
courage to
2016
sever
one.
these ties.
Which actor from? You talking about an actor from this
Keith
game?
Ferguson.
Kaim's VA,
Ah, okay.
Cut your ties
which
with
is also, as we
yourself
established,
while
people
your
like Bash
undying
or
love for her
Marluxia
your
from Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, wow.
Mateo Mendola is the character's name, in case you were wondering.
Sure.
For logistical reasons, he also voiced Gabranth in the Dissidia games.
You said that even if we have to cut our ties, we still have our spiritual bonds, right?
Yes, those bonds are eternal. Now, let us send Miss Lyra off. Many ribbons from Miss Lyra have been passed to her father. When all of them have been severed, Miss Lyra shall begin her journey out into Mother Ocean. Mack, with the lit torch you carry, trace the movements of the wands the attendees are waving.
Imagine if this was actually tied to the Kinect.
I was about to say, like...
Fortunately, this came out before the Kinect.
The shadow is having a fit.
Yeah, the shadow render.
Mac, is your shadow
The shadow of a
alive?
torch.
Try again
Yeah.
to match the movements of the attendees. When you correctly trace the movements with your flame,
This sounds a bit more like a tutorial for Simon Says than a funeral.
will sever the ribbons with their
Holy crap! And now all of the shadows are shaking. Oh, never mind. No, they're not. No, they're not.
You see, it is truly a representation of how in tune we are.
It has.
Yeah.
Their mother.
It has nothing to do with the shadow engine being broken. We swear.
Again, this emulation is sadly still not perfect. This game
No.
really needs a re-release.
No, Theo. This was already a thing in the original hardware.
I thought it was something bad to the emulation on the Xbox One.
No.
caused,
Miss
This game,
No. Usually, when it comes to Xbox One emulations, they're usually on point with how.
Well, Pedro, didn't you told me that the Alan Wake version, of this version of Alan Wake, was actually more borked because of the emulation?
it was, but from what I've heard, apparently it's been patched.
There is still the
since,
remaster at this point anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, we have the remaster now anyway, so.
Anyway, as mentioned, I guess it's time for a minigame.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's also interesting because it kind of has a bit of world building. In this case, we're actually learning about the culture of these people, specifically how they actually celebrate, the passing away of their dead. You would think that it would be some kind of a major plot point, like say, oh, the funeral director is actually evil and he's trying to control the case or, corrupting the youth, potentially. But no, not really.
Now press F to pay respects.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Actually, what year was... Okay, not to be fair, that Call of Duty game was released after this. I think it was around 2013, so after that...
Still, I can officially say that there's more than one game with funeral game mechanics.
There's also the... You can be raising the question of, we barely met, Kaim's daughter, so maybe you're not as engaged because it's a character that you literally just met and she dies in service of this moment, so...
I feel like it's more so, you're more sad because of Kaim. Because, because Kaim has seen so many loved ones of his die, and now here's another one to add more salt to the wounds.
Like I've been saying in the past also, the death of a loved one is, as a plot element, is as interest time. I usually tend to have a problem when they try to be more manipulative with it. I don't really think they are in this case. It's more like Sakaguchi is really trying to have a point, and we do know also that he's in good faith because, once again, this reflects his actual real-life experience of the passing of his mother, because the poor guy seems to not be able to let it go, and I don't blame him. I probably would do something similar in the same conditions, so I don't blame him.
Yeah, it's both Sakaguchi with his mom and Hino with the cat that got run over by a car. Like, they just can't get over it.
So it could have been done a bit better, perhaps, I guess, but with the technology that they had at the time, I guess this was possibly one of the better outcomes that they could have done, this kind of, plot element.
Well, not to mention, it's not like this came out of nowhere. The game has been foreshadowing...
True. No. Again, keep in mind, Pedro, that I don't, as I mentioned, I don't have a problem with this. My reasoning is if someone potentially Yes, Drova?
I was just gonna say, in regards to how the daughter's death has been handled, but if you're almost done, I'll let you finish first and then
Well, my reasoning is, again, while not valid for this case, my reasoning is if a character exists solely to be in service of, being used as a sacrifice for progressing the plot or, as a plot element. It's kind of like walking on a tightrope, for sure. You will succeed sometimes. Again, I still argue that despite my, bit of a problem of a generational gap, I still think it was still done in a decent way in Professor Ito in Pandora's Box, with the revelation about the villain's daughter. But I can imagine, people might not particularly, be caring about the character that exists just, to immediately pass away, and the people surrounding has to be, the focus in relation to that.
I will definitely say I can get if anyone is a bit annoyed that the daughter pretty much dies as soon as we meet her, and now we got this whole ordeal about it. I'm just going to say this. I feel that this can be interpreted in a positive way and a negative way. But to look at this in the positive, or at the very least giving this game the benefit of a doubt, my take on the scenario is that we are essentially in Kaim's shoes. Like, literally, to the point where, again, whether or not he feels great sorrow from all the people he's lost, we won't know, because remember, he starts off this game absolutely amnesic. He knows about as much about himself as we do at that point. All we and him know is that he's immortal, and he's been doing a lot of his stuff. But even he can't really remember that. It's as the memories start to come back that we see it formed here and there, to the point where, again, part of me wonders if a lot of his apathy isn't even really just because he's seen a lot of people die. Because he's seen a lot of people die, but he's had just as much good memories. But I really do think that apathy does come from the fact that he does not know himself, like, at all. And, like, imagine just not only being immortal, but not really knowing what your purpose or what your own self was. Like, that can pretty much drive a guy to the brink overall, I would say. Which is why, you know, the one thing that would obviously be a huge tether to him, his daughter, is what finally snaps him out of it, even if she sadly dies. And yeah, that's it in a sense. Now, I will say where the issue does arise is that, unlike us, Kaim actually did get to know his daughter, where the audience didn't. However, we do have some connection with him in the sense that we are just finally meeting this daughter that we knew of, very faintly, but not really, until we finally find her via our own grandchildren, only to lose her at that very moment. That's a good, you know, that is arguably a good way to connect us to the protagonist. That said, if I were to look at this from the other side of the fence, I get the annoyance that we didn't get to know her. And granted, maybe we will get other flashbacks that show, hey, what was her childhood like? Or what was she like with Kaim or whatnot? But I can get some people maybe being annoyed at, like, dedicating this time to a funeral for a character that they don't know. Me, personally, I'm okay with it because we did get to know the grandkids at least, and this is, in a way, focusing on furthering Kaim's connection with them.
I also mentioned in the previous part, Jova, that because of the setting, having characters like Kaim being immortal, this kind of outcome has to be more expected, and as a result, you know, it's more justifiable via suspension of disbelief too.
Yes, and like, you know, honestly, I'll say this. This is one of the better ways, I'd say, to handle, you know, the death of a character that you barely knew, especially with, admittedly, how, yeah, while the funeral mechanics are simple, I get it in a way that they can help the flow, in a sense. Like, you know, might as well talk about my 2 cents on the bout of flow in a video game and all. Like, admittedly, I get it. A lot of times, games want to give people the idea that they're still in control, ergo making playable cutscenes. There is occasionally the issue where slow motion is absolutely forced on you in a way that it doesn't feel like it increases it. But in a case like this, I'd say that the flow actually does work well enough.
I'm also in personal agreement with Sam Lake, the director of Alan Wake and, yes, Quantum Break. But he also directed Control recently and Alan Wake 2, which are fantastic.
Again,
but,
let's not forget also the route with Max Payne.
Yeah, Max Payne 1 and 2 as well. But I'm in full agreement with Sam Lake that there is nothing inherently wrong with cutscenes. In fact, they can actually sometimes be preferable over forcing a game to be unnaturally interactive. A good example that I can think of personally is making the sex scene in Heavy Rain interactive, which completely breaks any kind of mood or immersion. So that's a clear moment where that should have just been a cutscene, because making the sex scene interactive just feels awkward and not at all immersive. So.
Anyway, just to not associate this actually good cutscene with that poor association, unfortunately. Again, tell me again, Pedro. Because aside from the defense of the castle, did Blue Dragon had moments like these? I've seen, you know, mini games structuring us this kind of way.
Yes, remember that moment where we were pulling the giant chain?
It has been a while.
And you even complained about how Sakaguchi, when Sony did this with God of War, Kratos was actually strong enough to pull this kind of giant chain. So.
If I recall correctly, I think the Blue Dragon anime does establish that the characters get a strength boost based to being tied with the character, with their spirit animals and whatnot. So
I don't even remember.
It's been a while, admittedly.
It's been a while since we looked at that anime.
Frankly, I don't really want to watch it anymore. Again, I don't want to ruin this scene. Sorry.
Nah, that's okay. We're all doing it anyway, so.
Was your mother?
Shouldn't that be grandfather?
Remember, that's the thing, Drova. We talked over, but in a previous cutscene, kind of specifically asked them to call him that. But the girl actually specifically said, no, it feels unnatural.
And Dad was...
Oh, for a second I thought it was saying it, was she happy when she was dying? I was like, oh, of course not, she was dying, you
and
fool!
helped her out a lot. I'm sure she must have been happy. She always missed you, Kaim. And Grandma. You don't cry anymore, do you, Kaim? You're strong, Kaim. I heard from Mom that you are immortal and invincible. It's amazing.
She exaggerated.
Trust me, Mac, it's not. As we've seen through the dreams, it's not.
Necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
Depends on your point of view.
It means I see so many people that I care for pass on, like your mother.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot.
Yeah, enough to lose count.
That's why you got...
See, this is why the dreams are so. This is why the dreams are such a good mechanic, because thanks to all those dreams we've seen, those words from Kaim feel so completely earned and
Well,
true.
admittedly, this is also potentially a good pickup point. You can, again, if you didn't pay attention to much of them, these actually may prompt you to start seeing them, and then, you know, they give you more the context. So, at the very least, they are good to be picked up at any moment.
One thing I do also like is that it does show that in spite of all that tragedy, there is still a strong, upbeat spirit within.
Yes,
Kaim,
Sakaguchi, I saw E.T. too.
I just knew Mom heard our wish. Do you still believe stuff like that? Don't you?
Again, once, like Teo was just saying, Sakaguchi once again repurposing his theme of life after death because he wants to believe his mother is still out there.
Mom is close, and she hears what we say. It must mean she's with us, Cooke. That's impossible.
And again, also this piano, again, let me put it this way, Jovan. While maybe not on a super big elevated level, Uematsu with the soundtrack of this game did stuff that I wasn't even thinking it was possible with when, you know, listening to the stuff that he normally does for Final Fantasy. Again, like I said, it's not maybe, you know, super distance from that, but there is a distinct, you know, new quality to it that I wasn't expecting from him.
Oh, well,
Yeah, I
this is-
will say, this definitely does feel like a Final Fantasy game in pretty much everything but name.
Yeah, the seal number filed off.
What's wrong? Look at this. Mac went out again, and here, read it.
Dear John.
Mom in the Crimson Forest. I want to show
Hey, you know what? Again, under normal circumstances in other games, I will have to say something like, "Oh, that little shit," like you know, Knuckles said. But honestly, the context here makes it actually give it a lot more sense. Again, the poor kid is still distraught, and of course, Jensen will be the one not getting it all over the entire team. But honestly, considering emotional distress, yeah, it makes sense.
Too dangerous. I'll go with you.
Also, I do like how he doesn't do the stereotypical stay here, even though it's your brother. Like, he's at least reasonable to let her come.
You're coming too, Jensen.
Come on, Jensen. We know you have a heart under that snarky exterior.
Quit whining.
Save me, oh my queen!
Shut up.
So,
Let's go. I am so not rested. Gee, another hike. Oh boy.
come on, you gotta get your steps in somehow.
All right. Let's see
Come
what.
on, Jensen. What's wrong with a little exercise? You don't want to get flabby.
Remember, Jova wants to perpetrate the wizards, the stereotype of wizard not being physically adept.
It's one of the. I was talking about. Yeah.
The quote from Sam Lake.
Yeah. I was talking about the quote from Sam. Like I said, obviously video games should be interactive, but at the same time, you should not go overboard and try to force every single thing into being interactive, because there are things that are just better conveyed through a cutscene.
Oh no, well I get that. For example, the first, I don't know if you ever played it, Pedro, but the first Assassin's Creed has this weird way of virtually having almost no cutscene and having this entirely from Altair's perspective, and as Nitro had commented, this is actually very weird, the way it's posed, and no other title repurposed it after. But no, honestly, I agree with the point in what I was saying. Again, the sequences, for example, where you follow an NPC, those honestly will be better, as a cutscene more than anything. Like I said, I get it that they usually serve to maybe mask something, but I don't get it as immersed as maybe the maker wants me to do. An example of something good done with that is Final Fantasy 16, where almost everything that requires player input, is relatively high interactable. It makes sense for that to not be a cutscene.
Well, no, 16 basically. Let me put it this way. It also, again, like I said, it does become one of those things where it's necessary in a lot of ways because at the same time they do want to have you not necessarily have the character jump cut to every place, so they still want you to see the character walk from point A to point B in some kind of way. It's especially considering how the God of War games try to do the whole game in one cut thing. So it's not, so they're trying to avoid the cut to black. Now the character is suddenly here thing, right? So again, it depends on how you do it. That's what it really boils down. David Cage games do it badly, yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean the practice in itself is automatically a bad thing. Anyways,
like with everything, nuance is important. Like, there's almost never going to be any one set way to do this stuff. I do feel like if we were to try and garner it into one net way, it would be essentially leave the characters feeling at least the most in control if you really want to make it a playable cutscene. Otherwise, just have it be a cutscene, but let cutscenes be skippable in case people are doing it on repeat.
I actually just thought of one, too, real quick before we finish this. The beginning of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, where you pick up Gohan and you walk with Gohan. That's the one and only walking moment that game has. But I do understand why they did it that way, because obviously if you're a father picking up your son, and especially considering how your son doesn't exactly like fighting, is a very fragile little boy, obviously you want to take it slow, and it's literally trying to put you in Goku's shoes where you're literally carrying your little kid on your arms and everything. And that, it would feel awkward to allow the player to start running at a million miles per hour and jumping 10 feet in the air while he's doing it. So
no, I get that, but at the same time, I probably feel it would have felt better as a cutscene. Maybe a better example would be the start of Route C of Nier Automata, I suppose.
Sure.
The virus thing.
All right.
Anyway.
Yeah, we'll try this out.
Don't think I didn't notice you changing your clothes after your grandfather was sleeping, Cooke.
Yeah, that's going to be Cook's major battle attire, because she's going to be a new white mage in our party. So see you then.
So are you supposed to sleep in that bed first for her to get into that outfit, I guess?
No. That's a cutscene that only happens if you rest on that bed. But yeah, she's already in that outfit right after the end of the funeral.
Alright then.
See ya.
Ta-ta.
Bye.